One day after historic elections, Libyans are waiting for results in the country's first parliamentary poll since last year's fall of longtime dictator Muammar Gaddafi. Today has been declared a national holiday to mark the polls, in which an estimated 1.6 million Libyans took part in the country's elections. Preliminary figures showed turnout for voters was about 60%. The election for the 200-seat parliamentarian, which will be given the task of forming a new government, was a key milestone after a bitter civil war that ended Gaddafi's four-decade rule. The last parliamentary election in Libya was back in 1964. 5 years before Gaddafi's military coup that toppled the monarchy. Preliminary results are expected on Monday or Tuesday.
Well, the death toll in Russia's Black Sea region continues to rise in the aftermath of torrential rain over the weekend. So far, more than 170 people have died, many of whom were sleeping when the floods hit.
The death toll rose to 171 from severe flooding in the Black Sea region of southern Russia. Streets have turned into rivers, bridges have been swept away. Thousands of homes were inundated even as the residents were sleeping. There is debris scattered across the streets, uprooted trees, and overturned vehicles. President Vladimir Putin flew to the region. He has ordered investigators to determine what could have been done to prevent the large-scale loss. Torrential rains dropped up to a foot of water in less than 24 hours. Water rushed into the hard-hit town of Krimsk. Residents said they suspected that water had been released from a reservoir. Television footage showed the city of 57,000 people partially submerged in muddy water. City Stadium looked more like a lake. Across the region, more than 5,000 homes were flooded.
A grim pilgrimage in the heart of Europe's worst massacre since World War II. Thousands of people walk through the mountains in Bosnia today, the same route that Muslims crossed in fleeing Serb forces in the mid-90s. More than 6,000 marchers embarked on a 70-mile journey that will end on Wednesday night, where a ceremony will be held to mark the anniversary of the killings. The main event is a masked funeral that will be held for the 519 victims who have been excavated from mass graves and identified through DNA analysis. Srebrenica, with its majority Muslim population, was a United Nations protected area besieged by Serb forces throughout the 1992-95 war. Serbs rounded up and killed over 8,000 men and boys. In all, the Bosnian war claimed 100,000 lives. An international court later labeled those killings a genocide. So disaster art, now that's probably a genre that you haven't heard before, but it's the current exhibit running at one museum in Israel. It's the handiwork of artist Alel Gover, and he uses some of the world's most well-known catastrophes as inspiration for his pieces.
A 3D simulation of an oil splash ripples into life. These images are then crystallized in A.L. Gever's artwork.
The process that I've developed is basically recreating all those events, what I call environmental situations, in my computer using code. And then basically I create those, most of them catastrophic events, not all of them. And I'm choosing the epic moment.
Gever was the founder and CEO of several technology companies. He's patented 3D computer graphics technology. But since 2010, he has decided to focus only on art.
The process is completely autonomous. There are no human intervention through the whole process. But what's really unique is that you can literally sense the moment, the frozen moment in the end sculpture, because I'm taking this mathematical data from my simulation and printing it, so you can sense all the water drops, all the motion, all the explosion, all the particles within the final sculpture.
The art exists in 3 states: 3D simulations, sculptural moments, and digital prints. The 3D exhibition was showing at the Alon Segev Gallery.
How do you listen to just one person in a crowded room? Well, it's called selective hearing, and we all do it. How many times have you been told you only hear what you want to hear? But now researchers are looking at how we do it.
In crowded environments, somehow we manage to focus on a single speaker. Our brains have the ability to filter out noise. It allows us to listen to what we want to hear. Neurologists in San Francisco are investigating how the brain processes sound.
So basically what we found was that despite the fact that the speech from two speakers was entering the listener's ear, the brain was only processing one of those speakers' voices. It was as if it was completely tuned in to one and completely ignoring the other.
Patients who were tested listened to recordings of two people speaking at once. The brain responds to the speaker that the listener targets. It tunes out the second speaker.
The two voices enter the ear at the same time, and it's completely mixed at that level. What we want to find out is when they pay attention to one or the other speaker, how does that change the representation of the sound, the speech in the brain?
The team concludes that the brain is intelligently filtering incoming information. What surprised them is that each sound has a clear response in the brain, which can be tracked.
What happens when we go into a noisy environment is we're using our visual cues and our ears and our brain, and we're processing the sound. So most people look at who they want to listen to, and that really helps to. One ear was actually going to focus in on who's speaking, and the other ear actually acts like a monitor ear. And we're making comparisons between what we're listening to and the background, and that really helps us to hear. So one important thing is to have two good ears.
The study's been published in the journal Nature.
Well, we've all seen what Mars looks like in the movies, but if you want real evidence of the real planet, just look to NASA. The space agency has released two new images from the surface of Mars, described by NASA as the Greeley Panorama. The first image shows the fifth Martian winter of the mission. The scene combines 817 images taken by the panoramic camera. Now, in the second image, well, that offers a memorable view of a large Martian crater, a crater that is about 14 miles in diameter. The Mars exploration rover Opportunity has been studying the crater since arriving to the spot in August of last year.